Welcome to the Ultimate Plot Twist podcast, where each time we meet, you'll hear stories from ordinary people like me and you who have found huge blessings from the most unexpected places. Hi, I'm your host, Jen Barger. I'm a wife and a mom to two amazing kids, one of which just happens to have Down syndrome. And when we were handed this challenging and yet quite rewarding plot twist, it was the stories, the people, the recommendations from others that has helped us the most. I can't wait to learn more from these amazing people together and hope that you too walk away feeling a little more encouraged, a little more equipped, and feeling much less alone. Let's get to it. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Ultimate Plot Twist. I have had a plot twist today. As you can see, I'm coming to you live from inside my car, and I've got my good friend. I was just joking with her. She's not my online friend much longer. We are going to spend time together, Miss Emily. I've been stalking you now for way too long, but this is Emily. Emily comes to us from the Midwest. She's a local Indianapolis girl with me as well, and I am so excited because this is a little twist in where I've been in the last couple of episodes with folks. And the biggest twist in this is I just think it's important that we talk to all moms, not just moms with kids with quote unquote, the typical stereotype of a special need, but this is a relatable topic across all of parenting. So I really appreciated Emily kind of saying, hey, I have a story, I have a thing, and I'm just so excited to talk to you today, Emily. So first and foremost, let's tell everyone who you are, because I found you not just through Mom World. So who is Emily?
Hi, I am Emily Schwalbach. I am a former kindergarten teacher, turned social media consultant, which is like not even what I thought I would be doing anything like this whatsoever. But that's just, talk about plot twists. My life's full of them. And I have 3 sons and I love them so much. And I, married to my husband, Ryan. And, I just help small business owners, get more visible, but like without sacrificing, like no, hey girl messages, I'm not about that. I have my kids have a few things going on as well as me. And so and I told you this, but once you announced, in my head, probably God too was like, you need to be on this. And I was like, I want to be on it, but it makes you nervous because you're like, you don't want to be like presumptuous and be like, well, maybe. And I think too, what you said, like with the varying disability, it's like, is what my boys have enough of a thing to be worthy to be on this? Would your audience be like, oh, that's nothing? Because my life is totally different. But it is still, there's still stuff. And so I'm just thankful that you're giving me this opportunity to chat because there's varying levels of these plot twists. And they all have different challenges.
No, for sure. And Emily totally downplays herself a little bit here. So let me just give you my spiel on Emily. She is a bad A entrepreneur that has shown up in this online space. And you give a lot of women a lot of voice, Emily, and a lot of confidence. And so if you don't know her and her platform, I will link all her stuff here below. Please make sure and check her stuff out. And we'll talk about that here at the end. But what you're doing is really cool and very much so on mission. So okay, so tell me a little bit about your family. So you said you have 3 boys, 1 husband, who I love y'all's little relationship and what all you share with us on social media world. So tell me when you first kind of figured out that there might be some complexities here inside your family.
So my middle son, Bo, I noticed. Now, my first son, Will, was very early verbal. So he kind of laid the groundwork for very wrong expectations for poor Bo. He was very communicative, spoke very well, enunciated so well. So when Bo was, getting a little older, I noticed at about the year mark, a little over that, like it just wasn't coming out. And it was more so his frustration, that he couldn't say what he wanted to say. And so we had him evaluated and he did qualify for first steps for speech. But he also was a really late walker as well. He just liked to, take his time doing all the things. And it's hard, I think, to know is it just the kid? Because there's some kids who just, with any developmental stuff, it just takes them a while. And that's so normal. And so you, the parent, you don't want to be this like helicopter parent where you're like, is there something wrong? Is there something wrong? Or do I do this? And whenever parents come to me with speech or any other thing that they know that I have dealt with, they're like, how do you know? And I'm like, I always just like the peace of mind. So, it's always worth it to just get the testing done and just check it off your little mental spiral list.
Right.
So when he did qualify, there was this like, it's like a double feeling that happened of, okay, I made the right choice. And I'm so glad I'm doing early intervention with the speech. But the other side was, oh, he does have a problem. And so it was like this double thing of like, it was still a what if. But then having these very qualified people say, no, he does have a speech delay, and that's where his issues, and he's going to be dealing with this for a number of years. Then how we do spiral, and we look so far into the future. And I'm like, is he going to be able to talk to his friends? Can he make friends? What's school going to be like? Will the school that we sent Will to be the school that he needs to go to? I mean, it was just a lot of those fast forward thinking that I don't want to have in my brain, but we just always think so far ahead. He started first steps, but I mean, I just remember the words that we would lose all day. Like he would be saying something and I couldn't figure it out, and it'd happen on and off all day long. And I always feel sad for those words that are just gone. And I never knew. And his face was so disappointed in me. Like, I am his mom. I'm supposed to take care of him and feed him and love him. And why can't you understand what the heck I'm saying? and the frustration would build. And it was a tough time when he was so young dealing with this, because the feelings he had were just more of, you're letting me down. And it was hard. But he moved through it, and the toddler he was and the boy he is now are like night and day. That early intervention, those early years of really pushing those, speech appointments that he had and doing that and paying for
it's so expensive.
It's so expensive. And people would say, what's your why? Like, my why is so that I can pay for these things. Like, I don't know if we were relying solely on my husband's income, if we could pay for all these things. And going back to that, this is just speech. Like, the thousands of trillions of dollars that have to go into children who have different things going on. It makes you just like, so then that compounds with what he has isn't as bad. So I would feel bad even bringing it up for concern that maybe someone would be like, well, it's just speech. Like, who cares? But they weren't living in the day-to-day world of that for him.
Let me unpack something you said, though, in the beginning that I think, because you said a very healthy statement that is probably not where you started, because you made the comment like, but he's just a kid and they're going to develop at their own pace, right? And I think when you're a new parent, though, that's like a book that's not handed to us, right? The book that's handed to us is the milestone book. They should have these words by this time and these steps by this time. So just unpack that a bit, because you knew your intuition said that we're behind, right? But you like that wrestle. Can you talk to me about how you got from the place of, oh my gosh, like, is this okay to, of course it's okay. Everyone develops at their own pace, like that journey. Can you talk to that for a minute?
I think that it wasn't, I think that when I was sitting there in that moment of, okay, so should I just let this go and have him deal, or do I make a move? I think I didn't realize it could be both. Like, it could be both. He takes some time and he has a speech delay. Like, it could be both. Once we started with it and I made that decision, it kind of took the pressure off of me. And I was trying my best. I was a former kindergarten teacher. I actually we had to have a focus at Miami, where I went to college, and mine was speech pathology. So I thought, why? I know about this. Like, I know it. I can do it. No, I can't do it. No, I can't. And so that was also a release that was, I didn't know I was holding on to, that it was all on my shoulders, that I actually now had someone else, his speech therapist, who I could lean on. But I think that was happening at the same time. It wasn't just me just throwing caution to the wind saying, oh, well, they just develop the way they develop and it's fine. It could be that thought, and also, but let's give them some help if we can. If we can help, we already know that it's going to be a problem for a while, and a struggle for him, but let's see what we can do to help on the way.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, if I'm hearing what you're saying and kind of unpacking a little bit, Emily, I think the message there is so clear. Like, your intuition is never wrong. Like, follow it. And but then also, like, it's okay to have early intervention. In fact, for your neurotypical kid, that is not just reserved for a quote, needier child, right? Like, the little things matter. And I love that you have that you're setting your kids up for success by not ignoring those things. I mean, that's a clear outline of how you've kind of looked at that. That's really very healthy and very, very smart.
Yeah. And I think advocating for your kid, because no one else knows them the way you do. And I think too, the reason why I share so much about this, publicly on social media, is because I was going to all of my people and being like, do you think? And again, you're not going to really get the answer you want, because some people may say no, some people may say yes, but I just liked being able to talk to those who have been through it. My sister's son had a speech delay and she was pivotal. He also had some sensory things. He did minds in motion. He did horseback riding. He did all the things. So she was so well-versed and there to hold my hand that's why I want to extend that, like her presence that she had with me through that. And to see my nephew go to the school that she was wanting him to go to because of what she did prior. That was why I was like, okay, like, I think let's make the appointment. Let's go and let's do this.
Community, man. I just, it's one of those, it's a thing that I feel like women, we really stink at. We think we're good at it, but we can absolutely just really stink it up, right? Like but yet it's so important, like moms doing momming together. Like, I just reach into your community as much as possible. Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions about his speech delay, but before we get there, so your other son, you mentioned, had some things that crept into the picture too. Can you talk to me about that?
Yes. Yes, because just like to keep us on our toes. So I remember early on, so I was diagnosed when I was 16 with ADHD, and everyone was in shock because I was not hyperactive. My brain was, but no one could see it. I was just inattentive. So I would be a perfect little student, and I would sit there so perfect, no behavioral issues. And then I'd go home to do my homework and be like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what happened. So I got put on medication. It changed my whole life. And so everyone who's listening, my DMs are always open. I talk to so many adults, as well as adults who have children with ADHD, about this, about medication, about not medicating, about which ones work for me, and all that. So just a little, you're not alone. And if you need someone to talk about this stuff with, I am here. So I remember watching Will, and he would be so focused on one activity. I was like, at least he doesn't have ADHD. This is great, because it is known to be hereditary. What I didn't know, and what I've learned through now having a child with it, is that he had hyperfocus. So he was doing this one thing and not noticing anything else around him. And as he progressed at school, I could just see it, just because I have it as well. And I had his teacher keep an eye on him in first grade, and I said, until it impacts his education, because that was what it was doing for me, is I was studying my little booty off, and I was trying to be such a good student, and then the test would come and I would get straight C's, and it wasn't fair. So I remember that feeling, and rocket math was what sealed the deal for him. timed math. It's a torture for people who, one, ADHD, and two, he also has a math processing disorder. So it was just the worst combination of things. Oh, so his teacher approached me and said, I think you got it right. And he was tested last March, and he was put on medication, and he nailed his first timed math test.
Wow.
But it is a daily thing. It doesn't just, the medication helps our brains, but the systems around that is what really helps, and the understanding. So like, he's also extremely emotional and sensitive. And so managing our emotions is a very big topic, and also understanding where it's coming from. And my husband, he says he does want to get tested. He says he has a few things, but early on his diagnosis, now that we're all learning about it, he's like, I may have it too. But as we moved through it, he had a hard time understanding his like meltdowns. So so managing those two different things that are so on, they're just different. They're just different. They're different diagnoses, and knowing so much about one and a little about the speech, it just makes for a fun little scavenger hunt of what we can do to help every day.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to say it. And I whenever you talk to families and they've got this kind of complexity, I think a lot of times there's these perspectives that have changed, right? Inside either their family dynamic or maybe friends or whatever. Is there any kind of surprise that you feel like you've gained, if you will? I mean, just the things that maybe would surprise the audience to realize that, like, my goodness, I never really even thought about that way.
For Will, especially, knowing what's going to happen next, like all children like to know what's going to happen. But when you have ADHD and you ruminate on things, we really like to know what's going to happen next. And not always can that happen. So when people come over and they see like a visual schedule that we have, or also like a really sweet thing that I see is Will used to interpret for Bo, which was like which was such like a sweet thing. And then like Will also and we work together. So like when we get into the car, he'll say to me, Mommy, do you have your phone? Mommy, do you have your water? So like, I think when these things happen, and if you can find some sort of mutual ground of like, we're in this together, like that's what I think makes it so that they feel like they're your partner and you're not like the manager of the issue, like I feel like so a lot like I think that a lot of times people don't realize that the amount of conversations that you have to have, especially unpacking ADHD things, but also with Bo, like he doesn't get why we don't understand him. So he's very blunt. So I have to teach him some tact. But it's just very interesting to see him interact. And the surprising thing with him was he is my social butterfly. He has a trillion friends. I remember walking into his 3-year-old preschool, and his teacher goes, "Oh, he is big man on campus." I was like, Bo? Like, what? Can he talk? Like he has middle and ending sounds that just fly. Like he will just talk, but only the initial sounds come out. And so it could be a whole sentence. And if you don't know him, you wouldn't understand it. But it's such a surprising thing to think that a child who has speech issues has a really healthy, almost over the top social skills.
Oh, I love that. So and that's important to know that's, your kid is not going to be the isolated kid, right? Like these kids are way more dynamic and resilient than what we give them credit sometimes. Yeah.
And I think too, another thing that's been surprising for people to hear is I talked so openly about my ADHD that when Will was diagnosed and I told him, people were like, ooh, maybe you should do this analogy and maybe you should do this or that. But when I told him, it was like, oh, okay. And he was so comfortable because I was so open with mine. And even a few months after his diagnosis, he was super anxious to go meet these friends in Florida with my in-laws, and it was their friends' grandchildren. And within 2 minutes, he finally got up the courage and he was talking to them, and he came back and he said, Mom, she has ADHD too. And I said, why did that come up? And he said, well, I was trying to think of a Harry Potter character. And then I had to say, oh, I just can't remember it. I have ADHD. And she said, oh, I have ADHD too. So I think also just realizing that they're okay. Like, they don't need to be like coddled and like held through these experiences. They need you to be there to support them, but they're okay. They can manage it better than you think they can.
Yeah, I agree. If I translate this to my journey and watching what I've seen, like sometimes your kids need to see that they are more alike than different, like there are more of them than what they think. Like, it goes back to you and what we were just talking about. Like, I want moms to know they're not alone. I want moms to say when they see Emily and they're like, oh, she has it all together and look at her beautiful family, to know, well, guess what? They also are walking through things and they're learning and they're going through stuff. And neurotypical kids still need as much intervention sometimes as those who don't, or similar, or types of, or whatever. And, so our kids are the same way. Like, sometimes they just want to know, like, okay, this weird thing that I seem to have isn't so weird. Like, there's a bunch of us and we're all pretty cool, So are there any stigmas that you wish you could tear down? Like, if you're like, gosh, I hate that people think this about a speech delay and they think this about ADHD. Like, is there anything that you'd be like, guys, you're just plain wrong, or you're missing out, or this is way off? Like, is there something that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think with ADHD for sure, the ADHD boy especially is like, you don't want to have him over to your house because he's going to like break your vase. Like, that's, I feel like, is like the thing. It's like, oh, I don't want him at the birthday party because he's going to eat a cupcake and get too hyper and like, just like the impulse. Oh, they're so impulsive. They're this, they're that. And it's like, yes, they do have that, but not all of them are hyperactive in that way. I think just assuming that boys with ADHD are like off the wall. My son is like a gentle giant. Like, I can barely get him to try out for football this year because he doesn't want to hurt anyone. I know, he's so sweet. And empathy, neurodiverse children, their empathy is off the charts. So it's funny that, yes, they can outwardly be showing this impulse and not listening and this, but there's also this flip side of like wild empathy where he will just like see, he told me one time, he goes, that I can tell how people feel by looking at their faces. And I said, yes, I know you can do that.
That's beautiful.
So there's just like, there's other sides of all of these different things that our kids have going on. With the speech delay, I think that there's always, a thought or a notion that they will not be able to get their point across, or that they get frustrated with repeating themselves. Bo has had to repeat himself so many times that he's so used to it. So I think sometimes when kids have a speech delay, and I've seen this with like their friends' parents or my friends with him, they will just let it go and kind of look at me and be like, what did he say? I'm like, you can ask him.
Yeah.
Like, you can say, what did you say?
It's not insensitive.
It's not like some offense to him. Yeah. Like, what was that? And he will slow himself down and try to enunciate it more clearly for you. So, I always suggest that, ask him again. He's not going to like flail around. Maybe when he was 2, he did that. Yeah. But now that he's almost 6, he is very okay with, repeating himself. And it's honestly good. Another thing too is, it's hard, but there are things that he would say with, his speech delay that were cute. And I've had to tell family members, like, we can't repeat that back. Like, a cute way of saying something, that's just modeling for him that that's correct. And it's not. So, one of my best friends is a speech therapist in Ohio, and she's like, the lisp isn't cute when they get to be a freshman in high school. So she's like, don't reaffirm it by saying it. So if you do have a child with a speech delay, although sometimes it sounds adorable, try to model back right after that the correct way to say it, because you're not helping anyone by saying the cutesy thing.
Yeah.
And they might take offense to it. Like,
yeah, no kidding. And remind everybody how old your boys are again, just so they've got context.
So Bo with the speech delay will be 6 in a couple weeks, and Will with ADHD will be 9 in August.
Okay. Just making sure everybody was on the same page.
And Ford just turned 3, and who knows? We'll see.
And then we'll talk about Ford in a few years.
We don't know what he might be spicy too, but we don't know. We don't know what he's gonna bring to the table.
That's really good. So Emily, if you're looking straight at the mom and she's like, "Oh my goodness, like this resonates. Like this might be a thing. Like I didn't want to acknowledge it, or I just thought it would work itself out." You know, you've talked about early intervention. You've talked about community. Is there anything else you want to make sure that mom hears directly from you today as they're trying to figure out their next steps?
Yes. Now this is and I love you because we can connect spiritually. One of my friends, Lexi, because I was going through a very hard time when Will was diagnosed with ADHD, like I said, because it was hereditary. I thought, I gave this to him. I feel so guilty that he has this. And she told me this, and I'm like, this is beautiful, and I want to tell every mom I know. So she believes that the babies are up in heaven and they look down and they pick their moms. And she said, I think he knew he was going to struggle with this, and that's why he picked you. And I was like, ah. And so now whenever any guilt comes in, I know with Bo, I thought, did I do something different in the pregnancy? Like, did I, because we're crazy. I'm like, did I eat something to cause the speech delay? Did I eat the deli meat? What happened? Lots of shame with that. I immediately think to Bo or Will looking down and being like, she can handle me. Like she's the one for me because she will advocate for me and she will love me no matter what. And she will be totally equipped to handle this. And so that also is affirming, like, you are equipped. You are meant to do this. You are meant to be this child's parent. And so before, it was already decided. It was already all planned out. So that helps me step confidently into this parent advocate role of a child who is neurodiverse. And that is like by far the main thing. If your child, now if you are unsure and you're in a space of, ooh, I could be dealing with a speech delay, I just start researching around. That is also something I do for people in the DMs. If they're unsure of a place to go get their child tested for ADHD, I will look at their city and see if I can, find a place for them.
Look at you.
So, well, I mean, gosh, it's hard to know with all. It's like where to start. Where to start.
Girl, that's standing in the gap is what that's called. And that's a really beautiful thing. So that's amazing. Well, I want to say to you, first of all, thank you so much for spending this time with me, these folks here that are listening. But I want to tell you, it is so clear that you're in your purpose, Emily. I've wanted to tell you that for a long time. I've always felt that professionally, but hearing you as a mom, and just hearing, I think sometimes we think that we've been doing all these things to prepare for these business things or these goals, yet it was all to get us ready for the biggest job we were going to have, which is this advocacy inside our home and being the voice. And just know that it's so encouraging to me to hear the fight in you and the way that you're just pushing through the muck and the mire. And these boys are so blessed to have a mom that's staying as authentic and as real as you are in your conversations. And, I see that in my life with you, but I love hearing that with you inside your family. So it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Thank you for sharing that.
Make me cry. Knock it off. Knock it off.
All right. The best way for people to find you is your Instagram.
Oh,
is
yeah.
that the best way?
On Instagram. Yes. At Emily_Schwalbach on Instagram. DM me if you've listened to it. I'd love to hear anything. And again, my DMs, I say it all the time, my DMs are open. I talk about all the things. So
yes, you do.
There's no topic off limit.
Okay. And then please, I would encourage you guys to take a minute. She's got some really cool things that she's doing in the social media space. If you are an independent entrepreneur and chasing your goals and dreams, spend some time looking. There's a whole membership that her and another amazing lady do. But I loved hearing this side of your life, Emily. I appreciate your time.
Aww.
So we will
get back to inviting me to chat about it.
Of course.